Good evening, everyone. This is a very, very personal and very deeply felt for this Christmas time dedication. This is a requiem for a true warrior queen, Patricia Catalina Garcia Ascencio de Sockwell, of Sockwell. This is a dedication to my late wife, Patricia, or some in her family would say to Patty. Patricia was a co-partner, a wife, a mother, a business partner, and in many's eyes, in my eyes, she was a certified genius. No hyperbole to that. She was a head nurse at a hospital and an unparalleled, decent human being. During this Christmas season, I was wondering what to speak about. And I said that this Christmas season, I'm going to dedicate it to my late wife, Patricia, because she loved Christmas. And I thought this would be apropos to celebrating not only Christmas and the New Year, but also celebrating her life. Patricia, my wife, she wasn't well known, but she was well thought of by everybody that knew her. Anybody that she came in contact with came away better as a result. Now, this horrible day back in October 2018, October the 12th, 2018, was a decision that I had to make to let Patricia die peacefully. Now, I remember getting the word from the nursing home because Patricia was in a vegetative state. And it was late in the afternoon, maybe about 2, 3 o'clock, that they called me and told me that she had taken her last breath. Now, as Eleanor Roosevelt once said, keep busy so that the darkness doesn't catch you. So Kimberly, my daughter, and I, we went out walking. And as we were walking, we were looking out towards the west to the area that my wife was at the time of her passing. And in the background, there came a thunderclap. Now, according to certain lore or certain beliefs, that when there is a thunderclap without lightning, that means a warrior had passed away. So Patricia had heart disease, she had diabetes, she was going blind in her eyes, she could no longer drive anymore. She had high blood pressure, her kidneys were failing, and because of what she had gone through in life, she had developed psoriasis. But the most remarkable thing about my late wife, she never complained about it, to me at least. She kept it bottled up. She was tough as steel. But to me and those that she loved, and to others that knew her, she was as soft as a gentle breeze on your cheek during a warm summer day. She was wise as a serpent, not calling her a snake by any stretch of the imagination, but this is scriptural. She was wise as a serpent, but soft as a dove. She was so forgiving of people, even though people weren't so forgiving of her. But she maintained a certain dignity, even to her going into the hospital. She was everywhere she went. She was always perfectly coiffed. Her hair was always done. She always had her dress up clothes on. So she always took care of herself. And not only that, she took care of me as I took care of her, and she took care of Kimberly, our daughter, in spite of all these diseases that she had. She kept on going. She was a hell of a good woman. Now, Patricia, she was from El Salvador, and in the early 80s, there was a war going on. Now, when she was going to school, she told me that she had guns pointed at her. And this has affected her and her friends so bad, in particular her, she went home and she had diarrhea because it scared her so much, just like anybody would be. When she would walk to school too, she would see dead bodies around, stuffed in trash cans. And unfortunately, there were some people that would put bombs in toys, and kids would pick up those toys and they would be blown apart. And she said that she saw kids' chest cavities on trees and things like that. She went through that war. Also, she went through a dysfunction at her house also. Someone in her family telling her she would never make a good waitress. And someone in her family also spanking her so badly she had a seizure. Considering all these things, she held her faith in God. He gave her a counterbalance, which was a brilliant mind. Patricia, as an example of this brilliance, she could read a book and remember portions of that book. She said at one time up to 30 pages, word for word, with understanding. Just a brilliant mind. Now, there is a school in El Salvador that is well known, a country out of hundreds and thousands. I don't know what the population is now. It might be in the millions now, I don't know. But 4,000 people would apply to this school. Only 200 would get in. Now, the school would be considered here in the United States as our Harvard. It was so prestigious that if you weren't up to snuff for this particular school, you could go to your last semester and still flunk out. And also, this school that she had attended was so prestigious that the president of her country, his children at that time, attended this school. This is Patricia's certificate of graduation from that school. Those that are Hispanic speaking, especially those, my in-laws that are from El Salvador, should remember this school. So she graduated with honors. She graduated at top of her class. the other amazing thing about her, Patricia, out of the womb, in my mind, she always wanted to be a doctor. Always. It wasn't about 10 years ago when I knew exactly what I was here on this earth for. Mark Twain said there are two important dates in your life: when you were born and when you find out what your purpose in life is. She knew when she was a child, she always wanted to be a doctor. But the war broke out at that time. And if she had stayed in El Salvador, she would have died. Her friends, a lot of them are no longer walking this earth. So she decided to come to United States to be with her father. Now her mother, and this is another pain that she had, her mother disowned her because of a messy divorce. And she tried to reconcile with her mother, but there was no reconciliation. I remember Patricia telling me when she first got here that she made mention that it was like a bird in a golden cage. The English that she was taught in El Salvador did not have the same pronunciations as they do here. So it was hard for people to understand her. And so, what her father, and I will talk one day about Mr. Garcia, the brilliance of that man and the good, brilliant heart at that, sent her on the West Side to a Jewish school and enrolled her in English as a second language. So she was learning English. And also, she was in school to get enough credits to earn her visa, to pass the citizenship test. And she was trying to do this on her own. Now, during this time that she was working with her father, what they did, that they used to deliver from a store that Gustavo and she ran. And what they would do is that they would deliver cigarette packages and also candies to the Hispanic community to make money, because that family, the Garcia family, was a very brilliant family, and they always had an entrepreneurial spirit about themselves. Plus, Patricia was with her father, clean buildings. And so the building that I met Patricia at was a building that I was working at. I was parking cars on the weekend, which was a second job to make extra money. I was going to school. And also, I was working another full-time job. So we were both busy. But, and as she told me years later, the last day that she was there at that building, I finally had the nerve and the courage to speak to her. And this is where God stepped in. I remember sitting in my seat, and it was like electrical charge as I saw her walk by. It was like electrical charge jumped me out of my seat. And I said, "Oh, hey, how are you doing? You and your sister." But that was her, it wasn't her sister, it was her stepmother that she was with. And so, I said, I don't remember exactly, because I was nervous and scared too. So I asked her for her telephone number, and she gave me a telephone number. Now, there's a long story behind the telephone number getting, but I won't get into that. That takes up too much time. But anyhow, over a period of time, we started speaking more and more. And her English was getting better, and my Spanish didn't do anything at all. Um, so, but be that the case, she got more and more comfortable with me. And so as time went along, we got more and more comfortable with each other. She was 19 at the time, and I was about 23 or something like that. And so eventually I said, well, Patricia, let's go out on a date. She said, sure. So we decided to make a date. It was on a Friday night. So I get to her house and I went upstairs. I said, Patricia, are you ready? And she says, well, hold on. You remember that scene in The Godfather where Michael went to Italy and he was courting his future bride, and you see the entire family coming? That's exactly what happened to me. Her entire family went with us. Not only did they come, they chose the place that we were going to go out on the date. It was what we call here a pupuseria. So I couldn't believe this. I was single. I was used to dating and this, that, and the other. The whole family went. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't believe it, but that was okay. And so I said, listen, Patricia, let's go and out on our own date. So we went to a pizzeria called Shakey's, and that's exactly metaphorically what the date ended up happening. It was shaky. I was trying to talk to her. I was asking, what is your favorite color? What do you like to do? Except just to get her open up. And years later, she says, Tommy, I was so scared. It was my first date. I didn't know what to do or what to say. I was embarrassed about my English and so much because I ordered a large pizza and drink. She touched none of it, none of it, none of it. And I eventually paid for it. And so as we were driving back, I said, well, come on, let's go. And we pulled up to the pupuseria where we left the family. And I was driving what they used to call a college man's Cadillac, which was my 71 VW Super Beetle. And oh boy, I was hot stuff, boy. Anyhow, as I pulled up and Patricia sat right beside me, and so I looked at her and she says, do you want to kiss me? And she said, oh my God, why did I say that? Why did I say? I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry. I said, and so I held her hand and I said, yes, I do. So I gave her a little peck on the lips and we went into the restaurant and she was so nervous. It was funny. So anyhow, during that period of time, I was courting. I would pick her up, and by that time, Mr. Garcia, and I didn't find out about this till years later. He told Patricia, he said to Patricia, because there were other suitors, and he told Patricia, don't entertain these other people because Tommy's a good man. He's smart. He goes to church and he has great values. And so I will always love Mr. Garcia for that. And like I said, one day I am going to talk about him because he has a very unique and great story himself. But be that as it may, so we went on courting for about a year. And I kept saying to Patricia, oh, I don't want to get married. I'm going to stay single for a long time, because I'm just not ready to get married and so forth and so on. And now that I think about it, that probably hurt her feelings. And it didn't make her feel that good. But one day, there are moments in your life when you get clarity. And this was one of them. And I mentioned to you that she was brilliant. So we were talking, and she says, Tommy, I need to tell you, but I'm going to go back to El Salvador. And I could literally hear the silence because in my mind, I started going through my mental Rolodex saying she's a good woman. She would make a great wife. She's independent. She's smart. She's good with business. And it was like an out of body experience. I couldn't believe it because God had stepped in. He says, I'm going to help you with this. I got down on one knee and I said, Patricia, will you marry? And before I finished the statement, she said, yes, yes, I'd marry you, Tom. And I didn't get to me, but she said, yes, yes, yes. And so as I came back into my body, I said, oh, Lord, what did I say? And so we held off the marriage for about a year. And I got to know more and more about her. And I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here, but let me tell you this. After I asked Patricia to marry me, the next day I called my mother and I said to myself, my mother will probably be shocked that her son, Rusty, that's my nickname, is getting married. She probably will say, oh, I can't believe it. And oh, gosh, I'm so happy for you. And in a deadpan tone, she said this, it's about time. It's about time. I couldn't, I was shocked. I will say this, especially to the women out there who made that decision for their now husbands. It was one of the best decisions that was made for me by anyone, in particular Patricia, because I didn't know what I was doing. Now, fast forward to 33 years. Within those 33 years, we went to every state in the Union, from Memphis, Tennessee, where we ate great barbecue, saw Elvis's house, North Dakota, where we saw Little Bighorn, Miami, Florida, Texas, the flatlands of Oklahoma and Texas, Seattle, Washington, went to that famous fish market where they throw the fish, had one of the earliest Starbucks coffees there. Also, we had gone to San Francisco, every place in this United States. Plus, we sent her stepmother and father to Europe. And it was a dream come true for them. They got to see 6 or 7 countries, was there for about, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but it was a dream of a lifetime. Also, my father-in-law, even though he was from El Salvador, we paid for a trip for him to go see Gladys Knight, because he always used to talk about that Gladys Knight had the voice of an angel. So if Gladys is listening, you had a big fan. So also, we brought 2 brand new houses in succession, and everything that Patricia wanted, we had every conceivable fruit tree, vegetable. We had impatiens, we had grapes, we had dwarf pears. we had mangoes, pomegranates, everything. Our floors, we put in our entertainment area uh, tiles from Mexico. It was really a show house. And then when we sold it for 2 times what we bought it for and brought a bigger home. Sometimes I would go outside the house and look at it and say, wow, thank you, God. It was a blessing. Patricia, she was supposed to go back to El Salvador to become a doctor. We had purchased the house in El Salvador, but one thing happened after another. And because I was learning Spanish and so forth and so on, but I couldn't get her back there. But instead, we had a beautiful daughter, Kimberly. And Patricia was lavishing everything on that. I came home from work one day. There was a pony, there was a clown, there were chickens, everything. She just really showed out for Kimberly. And so not Kimberly, but Patricia got everything that she dreamt of in her life because Patricia was raised in a poor economic area of the world, but she was not poor in spirit. She was someone that wanted better for her life. That's one of the reasons why I married her, because she was independent. I trusted her business decisions. I trusted her with my life. She had other gifts that I won't get into. But if she said something, I know it was true. Be careful, so and so. Don't do this. Or she would dream 3 dreams, and every dream that ended up as 3, it would come true. She was remarkable. Now, October the 12th, 2018, was the hardest decision I had ever made in my life. When they called me to tell me that she had passed away. But prior to that, they said, Mr. Sockwell, and this was a day before the 18th of October, your wife, her breathing has become shallow, which is a significant sign that the person is passing away. I remember being on the bus and telling the nurses to let her go. Now, because of her illness and because there was only one income coming in and some other things, we had lost pretty much everything. Not because of our negligence, but because of a lot of other circumstances I won't get into right now. But I said, let her go. Then so at October the 12th, 2018, she finally passed away. So in making that decision, I knew within my heart that it was the right thing to do. And I will end this dedication or requiem to my wife by saying, there was a very famous business executive whose wife had Alzheimer's, and she couldn't remember him. And everyone said to this executive, she doesn't remember him. She doesn't remember you. Why not just go on to your life and forget about her? And he said these words, But I remember her